and on Facebook page. Skinny sugar, how much sugar? Desi chai.
You can buy sugar.
One sugar is good enough.
That's right, Kinga. We have to be mindful of our weight, of our cholesterol levels, of our diabetes now.
My missus came back and told me off. She said to someone, what do you do?
But you went back then, didn't you?
She went to Pakistan and she told me this.
I think you test stress that was in double and very rare. Very rare people put weight on back then. Very rare.
Some lose weight. Only some food, malte, healthy stuff.
Walaikum salam, everyone. We're just about to, in fact, it's time. I think we should go live on air. Hope you're well, keeping safe, everyone. It's been I would say, as always, a very fluid 24 hours over the last few days as well. So let's go get in there. Assalamu alaikum, good evening everyone. My name is Mr. Ali. Welcome to my Tuesday's show. It's Tuesday the 5th of January 2021. First of all, Happy New Year to each and every one of you. And what a start to the year that it's been. Just when we thought the kids may not be going to school, good old Boris Johnson with his cabinet have decided that we are due another lockdown. So we are now first day of lockdown 3, but we should be used to it by now as well. So today we are going to be discussing a very topical issue, which is all about COVID vaccine. So now 2 have been licensed here in the UK. There's been loads of questions over the last few weeks. Some are rightly justified and of concern, which we are going to address. Some are bordering on the ridiculous, and even though they are, we still need to address those, because unfortunately many of you are listening to these, and that news is spreading to our wives, to our sisters, to our younger generation, to our older generation, and they have declined their invitation to the COVID vaccine, even though the benefit of the vaccine far outweighs the risk as well. So today we are going to be addressing that, and for that I have none other than someone who has been no stranger to our studios, Dr. Imran Hussain, who is a GP here. I'll give him a chance to introduce himself properly and formally. But before that, as always, walaikum salam everyone. I'm just going to go through the reason why the lockdown has occurred and some of the local figures as well, just put everything into perspective. So we are now in lockdown 3, but what we are seeing is, through a combination of the weather, flu, and also the rise in the COVID cases, the number of people that are now taking up our hospital beds in our hospitals across the country is double compared to during the first lockdown. So hence why that is just not sustainable. Secondly, we also have this new virulent strain. As you know, viruses mutate. They have, they continually change, they continually adapt, and this new variant is 70% more virulent than the original coronavirus. And also we have this new South Africa strain as well, which is also very virulent as well. And the secondly is because the last week's data that we have for COVID, it is 50% more compared to the previous week. So the increase in positive cases of COVID is increasing disproportionately. So just to give you some of the local figures, I don't think Dr. Imran's going to thank me for it. So the highest wards that are seeing the positive cases of COVID have seen a 50% rise. So and those start with none other than Hall Green. Would you have it, Dr. Zen? So Hall Green has 858 positive cases, followed by Newtown and Lozells, which have 805. Borsal Heath, that have 777 positive cases, and Acox Green, which has 750. So if you look at the West Midlands in total, the average figure is 500 cases. So that probably just puts it into perspective as to why Boris Johnson and his chief medical officer and his wider team had little or no alternative to announce the 6 weeks lockdown that we have, lockdown 3. And this is in essence similar to tier 4, with the one real exception, i.e. the places of education, i.e. school, colleges and universities are closed, as well as everything else as well, which we were used to in tier 4. So I'm going to stop talking now. First of all, welcome to you, Dr. Imran Hussain. So I think it's worth, I think if it's okay by you, please, if I'm talking out of turn, please do so. Dr. Imran is a GP. There may be some questions that he'll do his best to answer, but maybe that this is not your field. I think it's worth putting that caveat out there. Speak to your own GP as well, to your own consultant if you are under. This is just general advice that we are going to be given. So just maybe introduce yourself and just some of the stuff that I've said. If you want to share your thoughts, please, by all means, do so.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. I think the last time I was here was at the start of the COVID pandemic, back in March.
9-10 months ago.
March, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I ended up catching COVID. So I've been through it. But yeah, thank you for coming back, inviting me back. So I'm a GP based at College Road Surgery in King's Standing. Now, I'll try to share as much information as I can, and that's all it is. It's just information.
Absolutely.
If anyone has any questions, any advice they need, then obviously seek their own GP opinion. Very quickly, going on to the cases you mentioned, this is straight from The Guardian.
Okay.
So this is UK data, and this is quite pertinent because it kind of tells us how serious the situation is. So 60,916 daily cases.
Oh, wow.
Which are up from 7,781 from last week. In hospital, there's 23,857 people nationally, which is up by 2,847 versus last week. And nationally, there's 830 deaths, which is up by 416 versus last week. So the situation is quite serious.
Absolutely. And for those of us that are on social media, it seems as though that no minute is passed until we see a new announcement of a death. And especially the last, I would say, week or so, it's been frightening now. And, our du'as are with everyone that may have lost their, loved ones. But let's move on to the reason why we are here is to discuss the COVID vaccine. So initially there was real fantastic news with the BioNTech and the Pfizer vaccine that came in early December with the German-Turkish couple coming through. That was FDA approved. It was approved by the EMA and the MHRA. But we've also had some great news as well from the UK side of things, because the joint venture by Oxford University and by a pharmaceutical company by by the name of AstraZeneca, they've got their license approved last week, and yesterday was their first patient that got that dose as well. So I think it may be useful just to sort of let everyone know that so far we've had 1 million doses that have been administered to date, and the intention is, the objective by the government is to have 1 million doses per week. So we've still got a fair way to go for that. But now that there's new testing spots, community centres that are going to be opening, that will won't be far too in the distant future before we achieve it. And if you look at the world picture, we are now the third highest country that has the most number of vaccines that have been administered to our population as well. So if you look at the world picture, we're not doing too badly. But I think it'd be worth, just for the audience, Dr. Saab, if you can maybe just focus on the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer one, and I know the Moderna one has been approved in America. Just maybe give us some bit of a background in terms of the data, in terms of how it works, because there's a new technology involved, isn't the mRNA, without going too in detail. Just an overview if you can, please.
Yeah, sure. So it is quite a technical issue, but let's just try to simplify it as much as we can, really.
Please.
So I think a lot of people are scared about vaccines in terms of safety. Yeah, so I think it would be pertinent to mention how vaccines actually develop. So usually you start off with a phase one where you work, well, even prior to the phase one, you have cell lines and in vitro cells where you actually do develop the vaccine and grow it and see if it works. And then you move on to the phase one trial, which is between 20 to 100 people. And then you at that point, you're looking to see if there is actually any effect on the vaccine in terms of what it's intended to do, which is usually to prevent severe disease from occurring. And then you move on to the next phase, which involves phase two, which is thousands of people.
Yeah.
And then again, you're looking at this point, you're looking at safety of the vaccine to see if it is actually causing any side effects, if it is causing more harm than good. You're looking to see what the dosing schedule should be for each vaccine and whether actually it is preventing if it's producing the immunological response that's needed, but also is it actually preventing the disease from causing illness. And then you have phase three, which involves several thousand people. Now, usually this can take many months, but what's happened in the case of these two vaccines, and given the COVID pandemic, is that they've done all of the phases simultaneously in parallel, and they've collaborated. So what we have is now we have these two wonderful vaccines. I say wonderful because given the fact that we've got COVID situation, they couldn't have come any sooner. So the Pfizer one was tested 44,000 people in phase three. And it was tested in USA, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, and South Africa. And what we find from the Pfizer vaccine is that it gives you 95% protection after the second dose. If you just had the one dose, then the protection is around 89%. Now, what does it protect you from? It actually protects you from developing severe COVID disease.
So prevents you from getting it?
No, it actually prevents you. So we don't know if it actually prevents the transmission of it, but what we do know is that it prevents you from falling severely ill from COVID.
Sure.
And that is good enough.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want is to fall ill from COVID and ultimately die.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what the Pfizer vaccine does.
Sure.
So from that point of view, it is effective. Even after the first dose.
Yeah.
The dosing is 3 weeks. So the first dose, after 3 weeks after that, you give the second dose.
Sure.
Now, that's what the data suggests, that's what the trial involved, having 2 doses in that schedule. It's an mRNA vaccine, so it does not change your DNA, contrary to popular misconception. It can't change your DNA. If changing your DNA was that easy, we would have done it ages ago. It takes, it is a technical thing. What the mRNA does is it enters into your cells, and then it produces what we call the spike protein. And that then elicits the immune response in your body. So your body then recognizes the virus, the actual virus, next time it infects you, because it already has the tools for doing so, and then it prevents it from infecting you and causing severe disease. That's your Pfizer vaccine. Side effects, I'm covering a lot of things here. I'm sure you're going to ask me these questions, but I'm just sort of whizzing through this. Side effects, yes, with any vaccine, there will always be side effects. Okay, so your local side effects will be pain when the needle goes in, pain afterwards and soreness. There might be some redness and erythema. Very, very rarely do you get any infection, but sometimes you can do. And generally a feeling of, and sometimes there can be a lump as well at the site of the needle. Systematic side effects that were reported were headaches, chills, fatigue, tiredness, feeling of pains in your muscles and in your joints. But usually these side effects last for a couple of days and then they get better.
Am I right in saying is that when you have any vaccine, these are common symptoms that you may experience? You may experience.
So usually if you get the flu vaccine, you may get these symptoms as well. There hasn't been reported, no other side effects have been reported. On the 1 or 2 occasions, there was syncope, which is basically loss of consciousness and drop in heart rate. But that was very transient and that was fine afterwards.
Sure.
The misconception that for somehow this is going to insert a chip into your body I'm sure you'll probably talk about
We'll
that.
come to that right at the
Okay.
end, I think.
So at the end, so the side effects are very limited. They are normal. And oh yeah, the other thing is the COVID vaccine cannot give you COVID-19. It is inactivated. It is not, it can't give you the disease.
Yeah.
But what it does do is it gives you the ability to recognize the virus and then attack it when you get infected. So that's your Pfizer.
So that's your Pfizer one done. Please, if you've got any experience about whether you've been invited for a vaccine, whether you've got some family or friend ones that have declined, or if they've received it, please share your experience. I am going to read through all your comments, but I want Dr. Imran to go through the second licensed vaccine now, which is the joint venture between Oxford University and the AstraZeneca, which is a UK venture.
Okay, so the AstraZeneca virus, again, went through the different phases, as I explained earlier on.
Sure.
Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, and it was tested on approximately 24,000 people.
Sure.
Now, the data, again, it was in Africa, South Africa,
Yeah.
USA, Brazil, Kenya, Japan. So, and it was tested on people over the age of 16, reflecting the demographics of a general population in terms of age, ethnicity, and so on. So again, it demonstrated that it was approximately 73% effective in terms of preventing severe COVID disease.
Is that for both doses?
For both doses.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first dose was slightly less effective compared to having the second dose, but effective enough and highly effective enough in order to prevent severe COVID disease. Again, side effects. So how does it work?
Yeah.
So it works slightly differently. Without getting too complicated, it hitches a ride on another inactivated virus called the adenovirus.
Okay.
So you take the genetics of the coronavirus, you insert it into another virus called the adenovirus. It's inactivated, so it can't cause you disease. Enters your cells. It then your own body cells read that DNA sequence of the COVID virus, and they produce the mRNA, which then produces the proteins. Okay, so it's a slightly long-winded way of doing it.
Yeah.
But it again, it's been shown to be as effective as the Pfizer vaccine.
Sure.
Side effects would be similar. So you'd have a local reaction, plus also things like chills, headaches, muscle aches, those kind of things.
No, that's fine. I think the only other difference, when I was doing my sort of research, was that some of the logistical issues that you may have between one and the other. I know that with the Pfizer one, it has to be stored and transported in minus 70 degrees, which, as you know, most fridges and even the industrial and the pharmaceutical fridges don't go as low as that. So that's the only logistical. But otherwise, that's the overview of the two licensed ones that we are going to be focusing on. At the moment, the AstraZeneca one, I was reading that FDA aren't in any hurry to approve that anytime soon, probably around March, April time, simply because they are investing in their own American Pfizer vaccine as well. And Moderna has been licensed in America, but no real rush to bring that over at this stage as well. So I think for the purposes of the discussion, I think we'll stick to those two, if that's okay, please. I am now, please, there's a lot of questions varying from one extreme to the next, so I am going to read those out. So please put your comments on. The studio number is 0121 682 9735. If you want to speak to Dr. Imran, that is a phone line that will get you through to the studios. Alternatively, please put your comments on and I will read on a ad hoc basis. So, starting from the top, Muhtarim, Walaikum Salam, Javed Akhtar, Salam Dr. Saab and Mr. Ali Saab, thank you very much. Okay, 1.3 million have had the vaccine and few have had very side effects. Who says it's safe? As I think Muhtarim, no medicine, no drug is safe. I think it's just putting it into perspective. I agree. So over 1 million people have had the vaccine here in the UK. And you are going to experience side effects. I think, but I suppose it's about your health versus your benefit versus your risk. So he's saying, who said it's safe? Okay, I don't think we said it was safe, did we?
So when we say safe, safety is a relative term. So nothing can be completely safe.
Yeah.
Even the food that you eat isn't safe. Yeah. So you have pakora, it tastes very nice, but they're not very safe.
No.
If you eat them over a period of long time, they can give you illnesses. The point with safety is this. On the one hand, you have COVID. COVID has killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially the people that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay. And on the other hand, you have a vaccine which protects you from getting severe disease with just the local side effects or the minute side effects so far that we've seen. Okay, and I say the word so far because the ongoing phase of any vaccine is phase 4, where when you distribute it and you give it to people, you keep monitoring it. Same with any drug that we give. Statins, Ramipril, any drug, we always monitor it even after it's been approved and licensed. To make sure that it is safe, and that is all. That is the best we can do, and that shows our transparency. That shows how accurate in terms of our intentions we are to the general public. That we lay all our cards on the table and we say this is the situation, and it's your choice at the end of the day.
Thank you for that clarification, Dr. Saab. So I hope that answers your question, Muhtarim. Al-Harmain, wa alaikum salam. I hope you're well. I watched Panorama all about the vaccine. What is in the vaccine and why 2 doses? I think we've clarified that. I suppose the only reason I would say about the 2 vaccine is because please come in here. After you've had the first one, the body then obviously elicits a immunological response to it, and by the time you have your second dose, then that sort of accelerates it. But again, doctor, sorry, doctor, I've got a call coming through. Assalamu alaikum, good evening. You are through live to the studios of Radio Aapki Awaaz. Myself, Mr. Ali is here, and also Dr. Imran. Please state your name and your point or your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ali. How are you? Good program, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, thank you.
Good. Just really building on Dr. Imran. Hope you're well.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. Yes, I'm well.
Yeah. Just building on your point. I think I often get into arguments with lay public or people that keep saying to me, why are you taking something, why are you recommending something that's not been tested, it's going to have side effects. And just on your point, I will say one thing to them. I said, look, COVID has a side effect. You die. Okay?
Well said.
So death is a side effect of COVID.
Yeah.
So this is something that is less likely for you that you're going to die. So it's something that we should all take. Yes, of course, you've got to have people, take precautions and all that stuff. But ultimately, what would you rather have? Something that's not going to protect you at all, which is if you walk out with anti-vaccine, or something that there's a chance, a very, very high chance, that it's going to protect you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think a lot of the times it's people's perspective. The fact that they don't actually focus on what it is that we're trying to do with the vaccine, but focus rather on the non-criteria, as I would see, compared to the actual thing that is affecting us. So they focus more on the side effects. Well, of course, side effects will be short-lived. They'll be minor compared to dying from COVID. And that is sometimes how plainly you have to put it to people, that they understand. But I agree with you.
The thing is, they also, my father has had his second one today, the final one. And I've had it for quite a few people. Normal people, educated people who turn around and said to me, what, you let him have it?
Yeah.
You're sure? Why? And it gets me, I get very annoyed. Not the fact that, I'm from the pharmaceutical industry. The point is, it's about risk benefit, as Mr. Ali mentioned. But thank you very much. Good show, guys.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. All the best.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you. I think that was a very good call, actually. Someone who's got a high risk, an elderly patient, and his friends, his peers are telling him, what on earth are you doing, putting your father at risk by having these vaccinations? So I think, hence why I want you to get this program out to the masses. For those people out there, we are at a very critical juncture, and over the next few weeks, if you haven't already, you will be getting a letter. I think you can actually check on the website how far you are down the list. I think 38 million along the line, so I'll probably get it around July, August. But I'll have no hesitation. Imagine if I was elderly, I had underlying conditions, I'll be right at the top of the queue. But anyway.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So that brings me on to this point here.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what we call the triangle of death.
Can I just bring that a bit closer?
Yeah.
So you're okay to... Do you need to look at it?
No, I don't need to look at it. So that's the triangle of death. Okay. So what we see there is this. So the area that's shaded are all the people that die of COVID. Okay. And what we've seen is that at the age of 50, below the age of 50, only a very small proportion of people die. Absolutely. The most vulnerable are the people that are over the age of 50, especially over the age of 70. They have the majority of the deaths. And they're the people who we need to prioritize to make sure that they have the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And that's the logic behind the prioritization. You have to ask yourself the question: what is our aim in terms of dishing out this vaccine? What are we trying to prevent? What are we trying to achieve? And the aim is to make sure that the people over the age of 70 who are most at risk of having severe COVID disease and dying from it actually then get the vaccine so that they can...
I want to sort of build on that point whereby those people that are over the age of 80, they are times 20 more likely to die from COVID than those are under the age of 60. So there's a big disparity there. So hence why they are rolling this out in a high risk category. And it makes sense, for those of you that are in the medical profession, it makes sense to go for those patients that will benefit the most as well. So, Mukhtarin, virus mutations more in the cold weather, hence why we are seeing more cases being tested positive and why there's a lockdown 3.
Okay, so I'm not sure if viruses mutate in the cold weather, and if there's any data. I'm not convinced with that.
Yeah.
I think viruses will mutate with time. So given time, they will have more time to replicate, more time to for their mRNA to be transposed and to be reassorted, and therefore new mutations to occur and new types of proteins to be made, which may not be recognized by the body. But it won't happen with every single antigen, every single presenting protein. So you'll still have some immunity to the virus, although the new strain might be slightly more virulent in terms of gaining access to your body cells and therefore replicating and giving you the infection.
No. One thing that one of the listeners does make a very good point is that people from the BAME community and the population in general within the UK, because of the lack of sunlight and the fact that we don't really go out much in the winter, is that we have low vitamin D levels. And they're saying that, by taking these vitamin D supplements, is that a alternative to this vaccine?
I don't know if that is true.
Yeah.
I don't think it is true. I don't want to categorically say it's not true. I don't think it is. I think vitamin D has its own place.
Yeah.
But I think the way to prevent any infection from occurring from COVID-19 is to have the vaccine.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. Vitamin D, yes, we do lack it. We'll talk about the BAME community because I think that's quite pertinent again to our show, because why does the BAME community particularly suffer compared to the general population more in terms of COVID and in terms of mortality and in terms of morbidity as well?
We will come to that when we got quite a few points that we are going to be focusing around the BAME community. And I think we have to accept that we are on a learning curve. This virus has come relatively out of nowhere, in the last 12 to 15 months. Who would have known that, your normal steroids, I don't know whether it was coincidental or not, that those people that were at the severe stage and showing the severe symptoms of COVID, that reduced you by 30% in that sort of secondary care hospital sort of setting. That was, like a trial and error sort of kind of a approach. So, we are, the medical professionals are learning as they're going along. I think it's worth saying. So I am going to go through these because I think this has been inundated with questions here. Will the vaccine cover you for life, or will you have to have it yearly like the flu jab? And that's an important question.
That's an important one. So at this moment in time, we do not have any data in terms of how long the immunity will last. With time, we know immunity does wane.
Yeah.
That's why you tend to have booster doses, because it then boosts the immune system. I suspect that the immunology or the immunity conferred by the COVID-19 virus will wane over a period of time, and therefore you may need booster doses.
Sure.
But more importantly, new variants may come out, and therefore you may need a new vaccine on a yearly basis, like we have with the flu vaccine.
Yeah.
So whenever you develop the flu vaccine, it's for the strain of that year.
That's right.
But then that changes, and therefore you need a new strain for the new vaccine for the new strain for the following year.
Absolutely.
So I suspect the same thing may happen with COVID, but as you mentioned, it's a learning curve.
Absolutely, and I think it's worth just sort of putting that in maybe more layman terms. Is each year the flu vaccine that we get or our family members get isn't the same as the previous year. There are subtle changes that are made to look at that year's flu and any mutations or any new strain that may have come about. So I hope that answers your question, Javed. Amjad, this new strain is really quite scary and is spreading very quickly. Amjad, we mentioned that this new strain is 70 times more virulent compared to the original COVID. Too many people mixing and not taking precautions. Prevention is better than cure. I think Dr. Imran would echo what I'm saying, that prevention is better than cure. Please, hands, face and space, keep your 2-meter distance. Wear a face mask wherever you go, wash hands, sanitize as frequently as possible as well. So that's the essence of our, every show that I finish upon, I echo those words. Which vaccine is more effective, the Oxford one or the other? Dr. Imran has alluded that the Pfizer one and the BioNTech one has an efficacy of around 95% compared to the AstraZeneca one around 80%.
Yeah.
That's after both doses. Okay. Sean Khan, walaikum salam, hope you're well. Pervez, thank you. Eat healthy, take correct vitamins, you don't need a vaccine. I think we slightly touched on that. I think it's taking a moderate approach and try and do everything right.
I think eat healthy, take your vitamin supplements is very good for your overall health. Okay. It won't prevent you from getting the flu, and it won't prevent you from getting COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
But I think if you're healthier, then what will happen is you'll have less kidney disease, you'll have less heart disease, you'll have less hypertension. And therefore, your chances of getting severely ill from COVID will be less. Sure. So there is a truth in that statement, indirectly, to be truthful. And that's where we in the BAME community have kind of slightly slipped.
Sure.
But yes, I think that is a very important point for our general health going forward.
Okay, Sean's come back now. Government are brainwashing everyone with these vaccines crap. We will touch on that, Sean. Razak Chauhan, walaikum salam, hope you're well. COVID is not a disease. It's in the air. Sean, I expected better from you, if you don't mind me saying so. Javed Akhtar, will they be able to give both vaccines within the timescales? What if they run out of the second dose? Again, Javed, we will come to that. Very good question, and I think there's been a lot of misinformation, and we need to clarify that. How come they didn't rush a vaccine to cure cancer, which is the biggest killer? I think, Muhtarim, it's not quite as easy as that. And the only thing I will say is, there's been a lot of will, politically, scientifically, a lot of resources have gone in order to get a cure for COVID, and there's been a lot of collaboration with different pharmaceutical companies, non-governmental organizations, with governments as well, to get a cure or a treatment for COVID and the pandemic, and a lot of the scientists as well, because for them it was something new. And why wouldn't you, if you're a scientist, try to put as much focus on this as possible in order to get a cure? And as Dr. Imran said, normally, I mean, I work in the pharmaceutical industry, if we do a particular sort of routine or a test, we'll get the results, we'll email it to our colleague, he may not or she pick it up after a week. There's no real great urgency. Whereas here, people were working, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, really, putting a lot of time and energy in order to get a vaccine.
I think cancer is completely different to COVID-19.
Yeah.
So cancer is not a virus. Cancer is actually a complex illness, and we're still trying to understand why it happens, and we're still trying to work on the treatment. COVID-19 is a virus, and therefore a vaccine can be made against it because we understand more or less how viruses work, and therefore it was a much easier task.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Thank you. And with cancer, without going too depth in it, the way it replicates and divides, it's very hard to sort of control and find a cure. And not that people aren't, putting any priority over it. But, let's stick to the topic in hand. Sean, it's not important. The government are brainwashing us to believe it's important. The only thing I will say for those family members that have lost individuals, try telling them that. Will you get fever after taking the vaccine? I think Dr. Imran has said there is a small possibility, as with any vaccine, that you may get a raised temperature. Everybody that is dying now, it's COVID recorded. Apne people are going to run when they hear vaccine. Yes, nothing is free. In the UK, be careful. Have they given this in Pakistan too? All I will say is not this particular vaccine. I know they've put a million order with the Chinese government, because I know, it's not just these two. We're talking about from a Western perspective, but the Chinese government have also released their own vaccine. And also there's one other country as well, Chinese, and there's another country, they've got their own vaccine that's come through much cheaper, and we don't know what the...
Russia has its own.
I think Russia, that's right. I think, so they've got their own efficacy, so I don't think it's good. I've not heard anything, but, Pakistan, I've got good ties with China, so they bought it off them. Why are the vaccine companies exempted or protected from liability if their vaccine turns out successful? I don't know if they are, Javed. I do know that they have had to sign something whereby if anything goes wrong, there is a fund, obviously, to pay some victims, but I don't think there is any exemption as far as I know. Sean, first it was the flu injection, now this crap. Since I had the flu, I've always got a flu, I still had severe infections. Okay, just try, side effects will, you will drop dead. Tara Khan, how are you? Just to protect your immune system with the correct vitamins, you will be fine. Akash, has he took the vaccine?
Yes.
Oh, okay, well there we are. Both doses or just the one so far?
Just the one.
And when you do the second one?
That's very soon.
Okay, so there you go, Akash. Hope that answers your question. Dr. Imran Saab is a legend. We salute you for taking time out from your busy schedule to come onto this radio show to explain the COVID-19 vaccine. That's Javed Akhtar.
Okay. Thank you, Javed.
Yeah, respect to you, Dr. Imran. Thank you. No vaccine will save you when it's your time to go. Nothing can stop it. Yes, absolutely, but still,
Okay. Can I just stop on that one? So he said no vaccine will save you when it's time to go. Of course not. Yeah, because when it's your time to go, you will go. But our Prophet ﷺ said, when a Sahabi came to him and said, Ya Rasulullah, shall I leave this camel unattended and untied? And is that tawakkul? Is that like relying on Allah? And the Prophet said, no, tie the camel first and then rely on Allah. And that's what we're doing. Yeah, we are creating the vaccine, we're giving it to people. But of course, if someone's going to die, it's their time to die, they will.
That's fine. Dr. Imran has had his. I haven't. Being a key worker, he's obviously prioritised. So salam to all, especially my bro, Dr. Imran. That's by Irfan. Your brother Irfan. Salam. I heard the second dose will be given after 3 months instead of 3 weeks. Won't this make the vaccine ineffective? I'm going to put that on hold.
Shall we answer that now?
I've got quite a few things that I'm going to touch on, and then we're just going to go blitz those, all of them. Great show as always. Thank you, Sean. Good show. Wasim Ahmed Aslam. Vitamin D and vaccine. Have plenty of vitamin D. You'll be fine. Just whizzing through, guys. If there's anything that's different, scientists do care about a cure for cancer. Absolutely, I agree.
They do.
So all 650 MPs taking it now. I am not sure, Mukhtarim, so that's fine. Thank you, guys. Keep on coming up with your comments. We will come back to those in about 10-15 minutes. We talked about the efficacy and those patients. There are obviously some patients that aren't included in the trials. One such group is children under the age of 16, and the other one is also pregnancy as well. And those patients that may be unstable, they tend to be excluded. But now I'm going to go hit through some of the points that you made, which was about some of the common misconceptions and concerns that you may have. So I've made some potions. One is, Dr. Saab, you mentioned in the trial that there's roughly about 44,000 patients. The other one is about half of that. So normally in trials we have, they're done for a year or 2 years, thousands upon thousands of patients. There's people are saying that they've been rushed. The people are saying that there's not enough patient data in there. And what's your point to address that? I know you've mentioned briefly before, but if you can just maybe touch on that again.
I think you're caught between the devil and the deep dark sea. So you've got sufficient data there in terms of these vaccinations.
Yeah.
All the arms of each of the trials were run in parallel.
Yeah.
So that was to save time. Okay. And then if you are going to see any major adverse effects, you would have seen it in those trials. On the other hand, you've got COVID-19, which is actually a pandemic, which is ripping through the world and which is causing high mortality, killing people. So you had to have a vaccine which was safe enough to actually stop people from dying, and that's what these vaccines have demonstrated. We haven't got the luxury of time to take another year or 2 years and have absolutely robust data within a narrow repertoire to say, yeah, this is 99.9% safe. What we have is something like 99% safe. So instead of waiting 2 years to get that extra 0.9%, well, let's just go with the 99%.
Absolutely, that's fine, thank you. And also in terms of the other point that was made in terms of fast track, I suppose the only thing I will say is this mRNA technology has been around 5-6 years. If that technology wasn't around, then we wouldn't be where we are now. Now we'll come to those points, Dr. Saab, if we can, about the 3 weeks. So the trial data was the first dose had an interval or a timeline of 3 weeks. But now in the news and the NHS are implementing that they're going to extend that to 3 months. Please explain.
Okay, so what you have is you have the vaccine, first dose, and it gives you protection. Then you have the second dose and it gives you further protection. So that's the basis, the premises on which both of the vaccines have the clinical data. We also know from this data that the protection afforded after the first dose is still very high, and the protection afforded in both vaccines after the first dose in AstraZeneca is also very high. Now, on the other hand, what you have is you have a limitation in terms of the time to give these vaccines, the number of people that need it, the fact that hospitals are getting full. You have a limited number of people who can give the vaccine because of the workforce and so on. So it's a pragmatic approach. The British Society of Immunologists, the JVCI, the Joint Committee for Vaccinations and Immunizations, eminent people within that, scientists who rely on evidence, they've all got together and they said, well, look, on the one hand, we have a situation where if 1,000 people were boosted with a second dose of the vaccine, you get a further marginal protection. On the other hand, if you spent that time giving a whole new bunch of people, 1,000 people who didn't have any protection, the first boost, then you would get 70 to 80% protection, which is better. And I think if you're a layman and you think in terms of population, and that's what these people are doing, they're thinking in terms of the population of the UK, it would be better to give that 1,000 people who didn't have that chance, the extra 70-80% protection. That doesn't mean that we're not going to give the second dose. The second dose is barely delayed.
That's right.
And the data shows that the protection will continue up until the 12-week period. And then the second dose can actually give them the additional
Absolutely, Doctor. And I was also reading, Doctor, that you've had the first dose. Do not for one moment think that you are now afforded immediate protection against coronavirus. It does take 2 to 3 weeks for that vaccine to kick in. And I was reading by some eminent scientists who are saying that gap, the longer it is, so about 3 months, is better, because by that time the immunological response from your body will have been there ready for that second dose. So you are actually doing justice by having that 3 months interval. So the pharmaceutical company said it's 3 weeks, but scientists, researchers, doctors will always do based on their own experience what they feel is right for their patient. It happens all the time in medicine.
It's a pragmatic approach. You have your clinical data.
That's right.
And if you follow that rigorously, then that's what you should do, 3-week dosing. But if you actually look at what we know from our past experience of immunizations and vaccinations and how we give them, then you can actually, and you look at the situation at hand, you can actually deviate from that without any considerable negative overall effect, but more of a positive effect.
That's right.
For other people that deserve or need the vaccination.
Absolutely. And the main thing is that you want to protect as many high-risk people as possible ASAP, hence that they don't pass it on, but also they don't suffer from it and they don't end up in hospital as well.
So as someone said, one of the professors, try to get as many vaccines into as many eligible people as quickly as you can. That's basically it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The other point that I'm now going to touch on is there was also some rumours, or maybe more than that actually, within the medical profession that, if, for example, the Pfizer dose is, because we bought more of the AstraZeneca one, the Pfizer dose, for example, we run out of, or, we can't get much access of, then we can, as our second dose, use the AstraZeneca one. And I thought that was a bit dangerous, but again, I'm going to let you answer whether that was just something that was a false flag or whether you be comfortable doing that.
So I think, again, we're focusing on points which don't really need to be focused on because they may not happen. It's a theoretical point. The data, again, the clinical trials with each of these vaccines doesn't show any data on mixing and matching. Okay, so therefore we can't say with evidence that if you change the dose that will be beneficial. We can't also say it will be harmful either. What the Public Health England have said is in very exceptional circumstances, very exceptional, we can mix and match. Now the thing is, that's very exceptional. It's going to be very exceptional. So on the majority of the cases, it will actually be the second dose of the same vaccine.
And the UK government has purchased 100 million of the AstraZeneca dose. So, and also they purchased 40 million of the Pfizer dose as well. So I think for the next 4 or 5 months, I think we should be, well, maybe more than that, until the summer, I think we've got sufficient stock.
We have.
And the other thing I was going to also mention is now, a lot of people, especially people from a Muslim background or from a vegetarian background, are worried about a lot of these vaccines may have, some sort of animal constituent in there. They may have a bit of, pork in there, and that may put them off. And you know what some of our rumours are like, some of the social overdrive is, are you able to sort of say whether this is halal? I don't think there's pork in there, but I think even it is, there's no animal ingredients on there, but I think it'd be more forceful if Dr. Imran sort of says that.
I think, again, with some vaccines, other vaccines, not the COVID vaccine, porcelain gelatin was used to stabilize the vaccine. Now, this is a religious issue, I think. I'm just a doctor, I'm a scientist, I'm not religious. But if gelatin is modified to the point where it then serves a purpose of stabilizing a vaccine, then you have to wonder, well, is it does it really matter if it comes from pork or not? But going on to the constituents of the actual vaccine, you can find out what's in a vaccine. You can go to the government.gov.uk website and find out what each vaccine contains by reading the Green Book. And it will tell you what's in each vaccine. In the COVID vaccine, you've got cholesterol, you've got potassium chloride, you've got potassium dihydrogen phosphate. These are all normal chemicals that we all tend to have in our bodies. And they serve a useful function in terms of stabilizing the vaccine. Once they go in, they get broken down. They don't cause any harm to the body. These and if you the foods that you eat, for example, from
absolutely.
They will contain various chemicals as well. So there's no such thing as a chemical-free vaccine or a chemical-free medication. Even the natural stuff that you have will have some natural chemicals in them. I think the issue is one of understanding.
Yeah, I think there's also an organisation, British Institute of Medical Association, I think called BEMA, and they've said that it is okay for Muslims to have this vaccine. It is halal, it is compliant, Sharia taur par. There's no pork, there's no animal constituents in there, so I think that will go to satisfy a lot of the elderly, or anyone actually who may be of concern from that. Back to the point now about some of the elderly people, some of the BAME people who may be reluctant because they may have a phobia with needles, because there's rumors going rife about what's in there. There's a chip in there. Some of the aunts, they're talking among themselves. They're very reluctant to have the vaccination, but also this is the high risk group that has most to benefit from.
And I wonder where we as a medical profession have failed, I was thinking about this on the way here. Why are people prone to believing false information, misinformation, information that is not verified, that is not scientifically proven? Why are they prone to believing that compared to believing your own medical profession or your own scientists? And this is something that we need to...
I'm going to ask the question to the listeners, if I can, Dr. Imran. Sorry to interrupt.
Because I think this is quite important.
Yeah.
I'd like to understand why people are prone to believing non-medical professionals or other medical professionals who come on the internet, on YouTube or on WhatsApp, without actually questioning who is this person. Do they have the medical qualifications? Do they have the data, the information to back up their claims? And do they have an agenda?
You're part of the conspiracy, doctor.
Why are they saying all of this? Is it the fact that we, as working for the National Health Service, are we seen to be in collaboration with the government? Are people upset with the government because they seem to be the establishment, or and therefore it's us versus them? Are they not to be trusted? Are they not to be trusted for other reasons? And therefore that then applies to how you see their how you see them when they give you the information about the COVID-19. There's lots of factors in it, and it'd be quite an interesting show for you to do on its own. Conspiracy theories.
No, we're going to touch on that in this show. You're not getting away with it that easy, Dr. Thom. So the number is 0121 682 9735. If you think that we need to do a show in our own language, because we need to get the message to some of our friends and families that are here from abroad, for some of our uncles and aunts that may not understand English, because I think that some of the people that do understand English are on social media. They're one of the guilty parties of spreading some fake rumors, fake news, and a lot of misinformation. And unfortunately, it only takes one person with a loose tongue to really spread that nasty message, because we are talking about lives. And why would someone like Dr. Imran, who has taken the Hippocrates oath, they will always put their own life in danger to save their patient and the wider community. Why on earth would they even think about giving something to their patient that they weren't sure about? So that's me going on my soapbox. But that's if you've got any comments, 0121682975 as well. And we've covered this many times as a BAME community. We have a lot of uncontrolled long-term conditions. We live in a lower socioeconomic class. We have multi-generational houses. We are working in frontline. Language barriers. We have high unemployment rates. Low education rates as well. So as a result of all these different multifactorial reasons, and we are generally more overweight as well, they are the reasons why roughly about 40% of all deaths that we are seeing are of a BME community. Wake up, guys. We need to be adhering to this, if not for our loved ones or our parents, and who else. So please, we all have a responsibility. Anything you want to add before I move on to maybe talking about, I know the last few days it's all about children, but I just want to see if there's anything you want to add to the BME argument.
So with the BME issue, what we found was that COVID affects conditions. So COVID affects people with those conditions that are overrepresented in our community. So chronic kidney disease, heart disease, obesity, respiratory conditions and so on, and plus all the other factors that you've touched upon as well. So we have to be particularly careful with our own selves and our own community, and take the extra precaution and be extra vigilant.
Yeah.
I want to touch on this at some point.
Sorry. Okay.
This is my message actually.
Maybe right at the end, maybe
Right,
conclusion, if that's okay. Yeah. So we're just going to spend, I'm conscious of time. We are running. I'm going to ask the studio manager to give me another 15 minutes because it's such an important topic. We are running because so many comments, it's just unbelievable. So the one is about children, because we do know that there was a lot of argument over the last week whether children should be going back or not, whether teachers were safe, children were safe, parents were safe because the children were mixing with so many people. Then there was, the older children, i.e. those that are in secondary schools, that they should be closed, but not the primary one. And there was some data to sort of, back up that argument. For example, the secondary school children are 7 times more likely to be infected with COVID compared to the children from primary school. And the older children in secondary school are ×2 more likely to transmit it to others compared to younger children. So that was the data behind it. But since yesterday's lockdown, all places of education have closed, so that argument has stopped as well. But unfortunately, there aren't going to be any exams this year for young children, so they have really been affected. I'm going to now read some of your comments. You still got a bit of time to dial in 01216829735, and then we're going to finish the show on conspiracy theories, and then Dr. Saab's going to give his conclusion as well. I hope that's okay. So let me just go back to where I was. So you've got about 5-10 minutes, guys, to get your points in, or if you want to speak to Doctor, please, this is your moment. So here we are. Yeah. What if you have allergy against medication or food? It's an airborne virus. Thank you, Mukhtarim. Why do they test you for this virus? Isn't it to find out who's positive and who's not, Mukhtarim? Am I missing something there? If I'm making it too, dismissing it too easily, Dr. Saab, please come in here. Do you think we will need a vaccine-style passport to travel abroad in future? Example, going Hajj or Umrah? I think so, we will. Maybe around April time, the government will issue some sort of guidance that only, or the airlines might, that only those that can travel are those that are vaccinated. It may not be this government, it may be the recipient government that say, for example, Pakistan. Who would have thought, I wouldn't have thought in my lifetime that Pakistan would have prevented people from this country entering and landing in Pakistan, and that was because of this new strain. Okay, I hope that answers your question. Muhammad Ali Ayub, Qazi, Muhammad Ayub, Assalamu alaikum, mashallah. Both of you are doing a great job. Special salam to Dr. Saab. Wa alaikum salam. Javed Iqbal, wow, long message. You just tested positive, Javed Iqbal has. So, very informative show. I've been tested positive along with family members. Everyone is isolated within our home, from young to old. COVID cannot be taken lightly. We are the lucky ones who don't have anyone with serious underlying condition. Very lucky, absolutely. Even we do feel really bad, and I am quite active, good, healthy 50-year-old man. Yes, good diet and exercises. I will be taking the vaccine at the earliest date. Better to be safe. Well said, Javed. We need more people like you advocating that as well. It's not more deadly than the Ebola virus. Thank you, Mukhtarim. Maybe explain this in Mirpuri as well. That's the point that I was making, whether we need to do a show in Mirpuri for people that, can't maybe understand and get the full grasp in English. So if that is something that you think we need, then please let us know, and we will do definitely a show around that. Akash, always a great show. Thank you, Mr. Ali. Shabab Nazar, thank you. You should not mix and match vaccine. And Dr. Imran said, only in very, very extreme cases. What about the people who don't get vaccinated and are putting people at risk? And when outdoors, how will we know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't? Yeah, absolutely. Shabab Nazar, yes, Bob Abdul Hafiz, how are you? Okay. Media is misleading. I think this is where media has a real role to play, and they have to be very responsible. Unfortunately, social media we can't control, but mainstream media, I think they have a real role to be playing here. Zulfi Rasool, wa alaikum salam. How are you? Very good. I believe what my BMA medical book says. Thank you, Mukhtarim. Razak Chauhan, thank you for clearing up all the doubts about the vaccine. Once again, very informative from Mr. Chauhan. Been reading and studying medical knowledge for 27 years. Thank you. Okay, Imran Sawa, is the vaccine proven to be safe and effective? How do we know it is? Only time will tell. A serious concern is when vaccine manufacturers have a legal waiver from the government. Doesn't really give you a great amount of confidence, does it?
The reason why they have, in my opinion, a legal waiver is that if you are going to allocate resources to developing a vaccine in such a short period of time, then you want some guarantees from the government to say, look, at the end of the day, this is uncharted territory. We're going to rely on robust data. We're going to do trials. We are going to look at the evidence.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what is the incentive? Because at the end of the day, the pharmaceutical industry, with all the best sort of will and wishes, does do things for profit.
Yeah.
That they have shareholders.
Yeah.
And within that, of course, they can do good things, being motivated by profit, but nevertheless they do it for profit. So that is probably an added guarantee that they asked for, which the government gave them. But look at the science. Look at the science. Don't look at the messenger. Look at what they're actually telling you. And the science can't be fudged. If you fudge figures, you will find out about it. And the data has to be transparent, and it is there. And going in terms of time will tell. Of course, time will tell. Time will tell with anything.
Absolutely.
But we can't afford to wait. Otherwise, then we'll have more loved ones, people in residential homes, our elderly relatives, catching COVID and dying. And so what is the alternative then? If someone can show a better way, fine.
Thank you, Dr. Sal, for clarifying that. Brother Javed, come back. Look at social media. So much fake news. If you do, you're darned if you do, darned if you don't. Even doctors have become a target. I've heard it from quite a few sources. We need more shows like this. Absolutely, Dr. Muhammad Fiaz, Dr. Imran, a great ambassador for the community. Very informative program. Ryan A, my nephew has been isolated for 4 months now and has 3 COVID positive tests. What's the best way forward? We don't know the full conditions. Seek your opinion from your GP. Javed, absolutely. Midpuri show must be a must. Radio Aapki Awaaz Zindabad. My Midpuri is not the best, but because of this important issue, I will give it a go. I've had my vaccine last week. Will highly recommend it. Thank you. No side effects. I must protect you. That's Javed Hussain, just giving you his experience of having the Walaikum Salam. Hats off to you, my brothers. You're doing a great job. That's Qadr Sultan Gujar. Thank you very much. So we coming to the end of the show. I am going to touch on the 2 or 3 points that everyone sort of seems to be making, especially on social media, is all about conspiracy theories. I think it's, we have to put it to bed. We have to address these head on rather than trying to ignore it. There are a lot of anti-vaxxers out there as well who, are purporting this myth. God knows where, they've got this brainchild from. That they are the pharmaceutical companies or Bill Gates or these, dark powers out there have inserted a chip. And we are now, this is the government way of trying to limit the population or trying to control the world, or even trying to make us infertile. I've heard that as well. And also there's people now that are going around to GPs, surgeries, to hospitals for, God's sake, they go in there filming, saying, look, these corridors, the outpatient clinics are empty. This whole thing is a hoax. I can sort of try and address that, but I think, someone who's seen it firsthand, you've witnessed or you experienced COVID. I know you've worked in hospitals previously. You've got a lot of, friends and peers that are in this profession. I want you to sort of try to maybe address some of these hoax or conspiracy theories.
It's sad, really, and I will use the word sad, and I feel very strongly about it because people have actually died from COVID. People have suffered from COVID. COVID is real. COVID is here to stay as well. Why do conspiracy theories happen? And I've given this some thought, and I'm still thinking about it, and I may not get to the bottom of it, but it'd be a good show to do. I think social media, the availability of someone making news themselves. They can say what they like without actually taking any responsibility for it. If the Daily Mail, it's a tabloid newspaper that I never read, but if they were to make a claim, they would have to stand by that claim, or someone could actually claim libel. With social media, there's no such thing. Secondly, I think it's this, when people feel they don't have any control over their lives, when people feel helpless, when people feel that other people are running their lives, they tend to be more prone to believing conspiracy theories. They tend to be prone to say that there are powerful beings out there. There's a powerful elite that is actually controlling things. Yeah, there may be some truth in terms of people who have influence through wealth and have the ear of the prime minister or the top officials. Happens in every country. But the point is that where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
How far do you take it? And thirdly, it's education. If you educate yourself on how science works, if you educate yourself on the fact that a virus is smaller than a cell, and how viruses work, then you won't be prone to falling for hoaxes or conspiracy theories. You'll see the fine line between someone who is stretching science into pseudoscience without any evidence and what actually scientists do and what it says. And that's where an element of trust is required. Trust in your medical profession. Politicians, I would probably say, going too far in terms of trusting them. But you know what? At the end of the day, when Boris Johnson does his morning briefing, who does he have standing next to him? He has these doctors. Now, what have they got to gain from it? At the end of the day, the only thing that's backing them is the figures, the data, and the data does not lie. So having that trust in the medical profession is important. And maybe from our point of view as doctors, maybe we should be more robust, more clear, more transparent in communicating things much more simply, much more eloquently. That's what a doctor's job is. It's a teacher. And maybe we should be teaching our patients a lot more clearly, with a lot more patience and a lot more empathy, and therefore we have a lot of work to do as well. So it's a long topic, but I think these are some of my thoughts on it. Don't believe conspiracy theory. Don't believe the first thing anyone tells you. If someone has years and years of experience and does the job, so if your accountant tells you this is good for your tax, believe your accountant. But if someone on the internet tells you, no, do this, you'd be foolish to believe them. The same with medical. You wouldn't take your car to be fixed to a guy who fixes bikes. You'd go to a proper mechanic. In the same way, you need to know who to believe to, what their agenda is, and don't forward it just for the sake of forwarding it. Think about it, and it's very exciting. You think, oh wow, this is amazing. This could be different, but actually no. Is it actually relevant? Is it true? Is it actually do the facts support it? And if they don't support it, then don't spread it. You'll make things worse for everyone else. Someone might actually believe what you send and act on it, and then cause harm to themselves or someone else. So it's a case of taking responsibility.
Absolutely. No, well said, Doctor. So as you are gathering your final thoughts, I hope this heartfelt plea by Dr. Imran just to allow you to, take a moment really and dissect what is out there. And, what I would also do is, what would you do if it was yourself or your loved one? It's very easy to dismiss when you are relatively young and doesn't impact you as much as other people. We all have a responsibility, because we can maybe, dissuade someone from doing what would be in their best interest. I'm just going to read out a couple of comments before we bring the show to a close. Already we are now overrunning by 10 minutes. So Javed said, every blessing and rewards to Dr. Saab. Absolutely. It's been a great show. Well done to all, including the production team of Aapki Awaaz. You are the unseen heroes during this extreme cold weather. Arfan Hussain. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Ali, and wa alaikum salam, Dr. Imran. Very informative show. Both of you doing a great job. More so here. On behalf of Radio Aapki Awaaz, we would like to thank all the NHS workers, the care workers who are putting their own lives at risk to protect us. Whoever thinks it's all a hoax, they should Absolutely. Qadar, well said. Whoever thinks it's a hoax, they should go and pay a visit to the graveyards. Absolutely. If you could, very informative show. Dr. Imran has explained everything in plain and simple English. A very, very passionate and dedicated person. Dr. Saab is an asset to our community. Absolutely. Guys, I'm going to now just, stop reading out comments because, I'm going to ask now Dr. Imran to just bring everything together, really. And if you've got any questions, we will be revisiting this day with maybe another doctor in a Mirpuri show, if that's okay. Nothing about you, doctor, but just I think maybe worth just changing.
Someone who can speak Mirpuri quite well,
Yeah,
can explain it. And there are lots of GP colleagues who are very good at that. And there's many GP colleagues who are much more knowledgeable, much more experienced, much more better at doing this job than me. So get the best person to do the job, to give people the benefit they need.
Thank you. On that note, I'm going to ask you just bring everything to...
So I made this up as I was coming here, okay? So it's a little flow chart. So what you have at the top is the reservoir. So for the coronavirus, it needs a reservoir. It needs somewhere where it can replicate, okay? And the reservoir usually is the person, the susceptible host. It then needs to exit. So it exits when you cough, you have these droplets. These can go on your hands so you can touch the surface. These can actually be transmitted in the air and you can breathe them in. So that's the way it exits the body. Then it's transmitted. So when it's transmitted, again, it's transmitted directly to the other person through respiratory droplets. When you cough, you breathe, when you touch a contaminated surface, and then it enters your body when you touch your mouth or you breathe in, or through various means like that. And then it goes into your susceptible host. So the susceptible host has to be the one who is more prone to getting the virus. Someone who is over the age of 60 or 70, who can then who has chronic kidney disease, who has heart disease, and so on. Now, they will then become infected. The arrow then goes back up to this reservoir, so they become the reservoir. So the important thing is, this is how the coronavirus replicates itself. This is how it is affecting us. So we use the masks at this stage here. That's what stops the exit from the virus. We also use gloves. We wash our hands. We keep social distancing. That will prevent the transmission from going from one person to the next. We then have social distancing. Then you have the vaccine at the susceptible host, which stops it from catching the illness. And that's the logic behind having the vaccine, that you break this chain. Anywhere where you break this chain, you will stop COVID. So despite having the vaccine, you will still need to wear a mask, still need to do social distancing, still need to do all the other measures for quite some time until we get enough of these susceptible hosts that are protected so that this chain can be broken. And the message is simple. The COVID vaccine is safe. It doesn't change your DNA. It does cause side effects, which I've mentioned, which are caused by any virus. So it can cause a local reaction into your arm. It can give you pain. It can give you headaches, chills, muscle aches, body aches. And then but most importantly, it protects you from having COVID disease. And the important thing is to get that vaccine into your loved ones, into yourself as time goes on.
Can I take a photo of this and then put it onto the...
Absolutely.
So I'll take a photo of this and I'll put it onto the comments after the program. So you won't be missing out at all. Anything more you want to add, Doctor?
No, I think you've done an amazing show.
You've
covered everything.
Yeah.
So, I hope people benefit from this.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. I think that's why I think he was eager during the first day of lockdown to get Dr. Imran here and to get this message out there. Guys, it's going to be another tough 6 weeks journey. Be there for everyone. Be there for your parents, for your neighbors, for the vulnerable members of the community. I know during the first one, people really looked after the NHS staff as well. Please continue to listen to the good guidance that's out there, hands, face, and space as well. I'll be here every Tuesdays listening and responding to any requests that you have that you want addressing or you want more information on. And until next week, please look after yourselves and each other. God bless. Islam.
उदासी में गुजारूं?
नहीं लेकिन
तो फिर हाँ कह दो ना राजा जी, कुछ ही दिनों की तो बात है।